When it comes to sewing the signatures, meaning all of your pages, into your junk journal cover, there are many possibilities on how you could do that, and one of those possibilities is to make a hidden spine. In this video, I would like to show you what a hidden spine is. I want to try to cover all of your questions you had about that in the past, and I would also like to share some tips and tricks that I learned during the past years to make your life easier with a hidden spine. Welcome, this is Luise Heinzel, and what I want to mention in the very beginning is, first, nice to see you here today. Thanks for watching. But the first thing I want to mention is this video goes into the deepest details I can imagine about how to make a hidden spine. So if you already know what that is, and if you have found your way already to do that, then perhaps this video is not for you. I thought I want to have a video on my channel that covers like all of the questions. I do this because I don't know if it's possible to cover all of the questions, but I want to dive into the deepest details with this video. And I will also talk about like the tiniest things that go through my head while I'm doing something like this, meaning putting the signatures into a journal cover. And if you're interested in that, of course, I'm happy if you watch this video, but if you think I know everything already, then please just, watch another video. Perhaps you are like, I don't want to wreck your nerves with this. So what is this and what do I have here and why do I have it like this here? So this is, I would say, a stage of a journal project where, you have prepared several different things, and then it comes to the point where you want to put the signatures, meaning the pages, into your cover, and with that you have, of course, different possibilities. I will go a little step back and explain what I have done before I do everything so that you understand at which point of my process I am here, so that you can transfer that to your own project and see where you are, and then you can, soak what you need from this video and transfer that to your own journal. So what I have done is, before I had all of this, imagine this wasn't existing. Let's put that away. I have chosen this book cover, meaning I have taken a book, which I had from the flea market, I guess, and then I have taken the pages out. So here in the inside, you can still see the original construction of the book, meaning I have just cut the book pages out. And then I was left with this. I've then straightened this edge here and this edge with an X-Acto knife so that we get a really nice and regular shape of the cover, and that we don't get any problems with these little edges here. If these are wonky, then later on you could get some problems when you put your new book, your new journal together. Meaning, since I have taken out the original book pages, I can already also see what is here. As you can see, this is a pretty new book, I would say. This was not a vintage book, So meaning, if you do that and you take the pages out from your book, please check what you have here and if this is sturdy, so that you can work with this cover as a base for your journal. That is the whole idea behind that. If you're new to junk journaling, then let me quickly say that you can just take an old book, take the pages out, and excuse me, please, use the base of the material here as a base, because this is already, like a book cover, and you can use that. Of course, you could also build this thing from like cardboard or something, or even some people use like food packages or something like that. When you have a little sturdier food package, you could also build something like this by yourself and cut these pieces and put them together. That would also be possible. And for what I want to do here, it makes nearly no difference if you have an old book cover or if you have constructed this by yourself. So when I have that, and I can see that this is sturdy, then I can be happy. If this isn't sturdy because it's too old and it's falling apart, then I would reinforce this part with some other material that is sturdy, some cardboard or something like that. When you have your book cover, like, you know, when you have taken the book apart, please also make sure that this here, this black slot, so I have decided I will call this the black slot, you know, until we will cover it up so that we know what we are talking about, yeah? So this black slot doesn't have to be black in your book, of course, but this black slot has to be sturdy as well. So if you do this, yeah, then it should be sturdy and it shouldn't fall apart. Please also make sure that you don't have holes in here or damages or something like that from the other side. I mean, if you have that, then please reinforce this and repair this before you do the stuff on your cover and create something on your cover. After I had make sure that everything is sturdy and that I can use this book cover as it is, I have decorated this whole thing and I have, yeah, created my cover decoration, or how do I say this? There's also a video available on how I colored this paper doll here, or this portrait from Ideology. I will link that down below for you. There you can see, you know, the cover was in this purple with the texture paste here, and in that other video I have made this little collage here with the butterfly. I show you how I got this effect here on the paper doll, and you can see my process there. So I will link that down below for you if you're interested in that. And after having this, of course, the goal is, well, not of course, it's my opinion, yeah. So my goal is that I want to put my pages into my cover so that you don't see the thread which I used to bind them in here on the outside. So I want to have this as my book spine later, and it shall look exactly like this. Why am I doing that? I like when you can see that this was a book, yeah, and when you can still read what is written here, and you can read the title and the author of the book. I really like that, because then you can see that this junk journal was made from this book, and there's still a part of the original book left in the new, or on the new journal, yeah, and I really like that. That is something like, you know, an emotional thing perhaps. And when you have this and you have decorated this, or you could also do that in the other order, there's no problem with putting the pages in and then in the end decorate your cover. That could also be a possibility, but I like to decorate the cover first, because then I can lay it flat to my table and work with different mediums on here. If something goes wrong or something, like, you know, drips into the journal, that is not the problem, because then it doesn't touch my pages when they are not in here yet. Yeah, so that is the reason why I like to do the cover decoration first, and then later on I put the pages in. Imagine you have a total fail on here and you would have the whole bunch of pages in the journal already, then you would have a problem. Yeah, so I like to do that separately, but that's a personal preference. But when I have the cover, the main thing is to measure this and to decide what is going on here, how many signatures can fit into this journal, how many pages can I put per signature, and the most, in my eyes, the most important thing is which distance do we need in between of the signatures. So one of these little paper bundles here is called a signature. This is nothing else than folded paper. Yeah, the paper is folded in half, and then you just put them into each other. So meaning you start, let me just do that in case you have never seen that. So you take the paper, you fold it in half, and then you take the next paper, fold it in half, put it in here, take the next paper, and so on. So they are like, you know, laying on top of each other, and every paper is folded in half, so that you then have in the end this little, like, you know, booklet thingy or something, and this is one signature. For this journal, I have already 3 signatures, and I will tell you how I decided about that. And the main, in my eyes, the main point for, yeah, like harmonious and proportionally harmonious journal is to decide how much space you will need in between of the signatures here, and how much space do we need here before the cover pieces come. And that is what I do with the following tricks. The first thing is I look, what do I have here? And that is very important in my eyes, because books are different, of course. And what I'm saying now, it's really important that you don't like follow this step by step, like blind, yeah. So, but that you listen what I say and then look what you have on your desk and how your book is, because sometimes the problem that I have here with this book is not, I mean, that's not a problem that is on every book, yeah. So because here we have the following problem. When I have taken out the pages from the original book, I could immediately see that this black slot is very, very big. And the problem with that is, can you see that this is really flexible? Can you see that? And the problem is, if this slot is too big, then imagine the pages are in here. Later on, the book could do something weird like this, because there's too much space here. That has also other reasons. In this case, the material here, this is very flexible, and because of the flexibility of this original book material here, this movement is also, you know, what happens then, yeah. But the main point that the book cover can do something like this is because this slot is too big. The other side of this coin is that, hopefully that was English, that we need a slot here, yeah? Don't make the mistake that you make the spine piece so wide that it directly meets your book cover material here. You need some kind of this black slot here, but not that big. How to decide how big this shall be and how to solve the problem that this is so flexible? Very easy. We have this, we take a ruler, and then I like to place my ruler here. I will zoom in a little bit so that you can see that better. And this really doesn't matter if this is inch or centimeters. So this ruler shows centimeters, but you can do that with a ruler that shows inch as well, of course. As you can see, I'm placing this here, but centered. Let me quickly take something. So I look to my ruler only until here where the next cover is. Yeah, so I've lined this paper up with the edge of this so that you can see that I only look to this short piece of the ruler. And now you can also see that 0 is not here on this edge, but that I already left a few millimeters here for my new black slot. Meaning I have, let me take a second piece of paper. Come on. Here, there's 0, meaning the black slot under this paper is my new black slot. And this I want to cover up. The same here, if I do it like so, approximately, well, yeah, I like to go onto like, you know, full centimeters or half centimeters so that it is easier. So meaning 3 or 3.5 or 4, so that it's just easier to measure. So if I go to 3.5, I can see that I have a black slot below my paper here and a black slot below my paper here. Yeah, so that I can see, okay, 3.5 centimeters could be a good measurement for this whole thing. How to decide how big the new black slot has to be? There's a trick. Or let's say, yeah, it's not really a trick. It also requires some experience, I would say, but there are some things that you could have in mind before you decide how big this shall be. Yeah, so you have to imagine this piece of the book and also the other one. You want to close the book later, and then you have to, of course, do something like this. Yeah, so meaning this thickness here, this here, needs space when you close the book like so, because then the angle of the material here is like 90 degrees, and this thickness needs to go into our new black slot here somewhere. Meaning we need this, what we have here. You can of course measure that. This is about 2 millimeters in my case. And then I want to cover the inside of this with some fabric. Meaning I have to choose my fabric and feel how thick this is approximately. I will tell you about fabric and what fabric I choose in a second as well. So meaning I need to have in mind that I have to like feel or measure somehow the thickness of the cover, meaning these 2 millimeters, the thickness of the fabric, and very important, the thickness that my glue will give me. Many people make the mistake, and I often get emails about that. Oh, Louise, I can't close my book anymore. What have I done wrong? Perhaps your slot was not big enough. And that's because many people forget that glue also makes a little thickness. Yeah, so this is bookbinder's glue, and bookbinder's glue is relatively thick, meaning if you put that on here and even if you spread it, when it then dries, it gives you a little thickness, and you have to have that in mind that you need that here as well. Some tutorials on YouTube, and I followed those in the past as well, tell you, and that is probably nothing that is meant bad, yeah, but that is probably something that is not so handy when it comes to using fabric in the inside or using thicker fabric or whatever, because some tutorials tell you that you just have to measure the thickness of the cover here and use this measurement for the new black slot. But that is not enough if you want to put something on here, because then you just have the thickness of this as the width here for the slot, and then that can't be enough. And when you then want to close the journal, you don't have enough space to do this movement here. Another thing is, before we go on with this, what do you glue in here? So many people think, okay, I have some paper, and a junk journal is something that is made from paper. Okay, I totally got that. And they say, I want to glue some paper in here as well. I have some beautiful design paper, and I want to use that. If you want to hear my opinion, then it would sound like this. Don't do that. Just don't do that. Because if you would use some paper in here, so let's just take something. Do I have something here which I could use? I need this for later, but I can show you. So let's say we have like a scrapbooking paper that is approximately the same thickness like this. Imagine you put that in here and you glue that down. You can take a bone folder, that is this kind of tool. Please excuse that this is so dirty. And you could, of course, glue this, and then you could go with your bone folder in here and really press this down and really, glue this down really, really well. But what will happen when you then close the book here and you open and close this several times? With the time, this could break. And you perhaps know that. I mean, this is a very high quality paper, even if it is really old, but perhaps with scrapbooking paper, if you take a tool like this bone folder, and you go over that, it can happen. Yeah, you can see it here as well. The paper breaks here. That is normal because, it's paper. And if you have that in here, and when then also glue is here, the chance that it breaks when you do it like this is very high. And with glue and stiff paper, this slot gets stiff, of course, as well. And when you then open and close this, and imagine you have the highest quality of scrapbooking paper, and this doesn't happen, it doesn't break, it's like, a magic paper that can't break, then you would have a problem anyway, because it would make noises when you do it like this. Perhaps you have experienced that, if you have tried that out already, that when you have glue and paper here, that it makes like when you open and close your journal, and I think that is not nice. Yeah, I don't want to have these like noises when I open my journal. I don't like that. So that's the reason why I like to take some fabric to cover the inside of this. Of course, you have different possibilities. You can take a fabric which is the size of your cover, meaning take this and put that on here. I will tell you in a second how I measure this so that it is like big enough and nice. You can take a whole like a sheet of fabric. Is sheet a word in combination with fabric? I don't know. I'm meaning a piece of fabric that is the same measurements like the book cover, so that you have covered everything at the same time. Or you could, of course, also put some fabric here and here and make this piece that we later on use a little smaller and like puzzle that to each other. You could also, of course, glue paper here, you know, just like until here, and then do the thing with the hidden spine on fabric and glue the fabric like so, so that you have two pockets here. That would also be possible, but the point is, what I want to say is that you don't cover this black slot and this black slot with paper, because then, you know, it could happen what I just said. Yeah, so then, which kind of fabric can you choose for this? As you can see, this is, yeah, pretty thin. It is sturdy, of course, and it is something that I can tear. I like to tear my fabrics because that is easier for me than cutting it, and I get this frayed edge, which I really like in my journals. And I don't like, you know, cut edges. But of course, you could also choose a fabric which you can cut if you don't like having something like this here. Another thing is, I mean, the main point I would say is that the fabric is not too thick, because imagine we have this on here later and the fabric is glued into the black slot. If the fabric is too stiff, then you could also get problems with opening and closing the journal. That is the reason why I like to choose fabric that is relatively thin. If it is like translucent, or if it is not translucent, is it? No, you can't see anything through it. You can, you know, you see that it is lighter here, but you know, if you had some, here there's some writing. Let's see if this is, yeah, you can see it a tiny little bit. But, you know, imagine here was like weird stuff on the cover and the fabric is too translucent. Then you just take some white paint over this, and then you can put the fabric on top without any problems. But if the fabric is too thick, then you can get problems with, you know, this. And what else did I want to say? Ah, yes. And I also check with my fabric, how easy can I take out these little threads here. So if I go in with my fingernail here, you can see it is really hard to, I mean, it is possible, but it's not hard. They come out easily. I can take them out, but they are not falling out by themselves. Yeah. If you have a fabric where you know, do something like this and all of the fibers come out, then please make sure that you go to your sewing machine and sew around the piece of fabric you've cut for the measurements of this book, so that you have like an edge around here so that the fibers can't come out more. Because if you work with this and your fibers are fibers, is that a word? Fiber, faser, thread, don't know, you know, these little guys here, if they come out, if too many of these come out, then it could happen that you later on can see the book cover material here in the inside because your fabric gets too small. Yeah, so that would be a trick to sew around here. If you don't have a sewing machine and you have the problem that these little guys come out, then just take some glue, water that down, water that down a little bit, and then go over the edges here carefully so that everything here sticks together, so that your piece has still the same size, you know, until the end of your process. I would recommend then to use a glue, you know, which is not so visible later. For example, collage medium would work, or like gel medium, which dries matte, that you can't see this so well. Don't take too much, just the tiniest little bit, so that the little threads here can't come out more. Yeah. So then we are going to take this, and what I like to do is I like to go to my drawer where my fabrics are, and I take my cover and I hold that to the fabric like so, because when I want to choose a fabric which has, you know, a print on it, a design, then it's sometimes hard to imagine when you have your book like this and you open it and you will see the fabric in the inside. Yeah, how to imagine that, because you can't see that at the same time. And since the fabric is not here, it's hard to imagine. So my trick is I lay this down like so. Even if I won't see this and this later on at the same time, I mean, if I can't look around the corner, yeah, then, and I can't look around the corner, and you hopefully also can't look around the corner, then we won't see this and this at the same time. But I think it's something like an emotion as well when you open a journal for the first time and you have the cover here, you open it, and then, you know, you feel what is here in the inside, the pattern here, and also what is on the first page of the first signature, so that when you have this in here, I want that this and this and this matches so that it looks harmonious. And that is perhaps a little trick to take this and then, you know, see, this is nice, and then you can just take that. And then when I have this, and this is like a really bad example because this is already a rectangle, but imagine you have a piece of fabric which is not a rectangle. Then I like to do the following thing. I like to take some scissors and cut in here just the tiniest bit, yeah, just a little bit. And I like to tear this to see where it tears. That sounds weird. But sometimes if you, especially if you have, for example, an edge which was cut with scissors here, and then you tear here, it could happen that this is not 90 degree anymore. And then you have a really hard job to get a piece which is really a rectangle for your cover. So meaning if you tear here, of course, you tear along the thread here, so you can see, how is that called in English? You know, the thread goes here straight, and the other threads go like with 90 degrees, like so, so that this is 90 degree thread-wise. Is that a word? Do you know what I mean? So if I have a straight edge here now with tearing, I can then take this and put that to my grid here, just like this, and I can see that this is also here a little wonky. Can you see that? It's not, this is not so nice. It's, I mean, it would be possible to handle that, but it is a little nerve-wracking. So what am I going to do? I'm going to take my scissors again and just cut in here and tear another little strip here. And please don't think this is waste of fabric. It isn't, because this is totally perfect for making, for example, a closure. You know, you can make a little collage with your sewing machine from these little scraps. You could take that as collage material. You can use this for any kind of mixed media project. Don't throw this away. This is, in my eyes, not wasted. It's just like, you know, a little fabric collage fodder. But in this moment, it helps me to get an easier job with doing this, because now when I flatten this out again, you could also take an iron, of course, just like this, then I can see that this edge looks way better now. This is now, ooh, it's laying wonky, but it is 90 degree. I can see that. I'm so sorry. You can only see it when I do it exactly here on the mat. Look. Now it is 90 degree, and I know now when I have this that I can take my cover and that I can place it here and then just tear the rest. How do I place this here? Very easy. I look where the fabric starts, meaning I'm ignoring these frayed little guys here, this fluff. I'm ignoring that, and I look where the first thread from the fabric starts. You can see this line here, can't you? And this is what I use as an orientation. And then I take my cover and I place it a few millimeters away from that, because in this case I want to have this fluff peeking out from the journal later, meaning I don't line this up with this line of the fabric, but I go a few millimeters to the inside. We will later on take the threads out here, which are too much, so that only the fluff is shown. I will show you a trick for that, for how you can do that as well. But that means this piece of fabric is now going to become a little bigger than the cover is. And of course, you could also do this way more extreme by, for example, doing it like this. And then later on, take all of the threads out, and then you would have longer fluff. Yeah, so you can decide how long you want to have your fluff by placing the journal more to the inside and leaving more space here. I would say, if you have never done this, leave more space instead of not enough, because you can later on always cut the fluff shorter. But if your fluff is too short and you want to have it longer, then it's hard, because, you know, it won't grow. It's not hair, yeah? So then let's place this here. And I press this down because, you know, this has a little wiggle room. I press this down, and then I look here on the bottom, and I leave approximately the same amount of millimeters here on the bottom. I cut in here, just like this. Hold this in place, press this down, because when this is like, you know, in the air somehow, then this is shorter, and then it's like silly. So now you can't see anything. I will cut here now. Can you see that? Holy moly. I'm sorry. So I cut in here, also with a little distance, the same distance I have here. And then I can take this and just tear it. And of course, as I said, if you don't like torn fabric, then please feel free to cut that with your scissors or with a rotary fabric trimmer. Is that a word? Hopefully. And then we have this piece. And I take these loose threads out so that I don't have them in the way. Then I like to double check this, because if this was now too small, then we would have a problem in the very end, and we don't want that. So this is totally fine, I would say. Okay, so then we can take this and put this away for a second, and we can take this and go to the inside of this thing back, meaning we said we had 3.5 centimeters which fit in here, and the most important thing for the next steps is coffee. And then this thing, you know, Tim would say, don't freak your freak with the next steps. This is probably the hardest part of the video for me to explain in English. It would be even hard to explain that in German. But the thing is that I have learned different things about the materials of a book, the measurements here, the thickness of my signatures, and with that I have learned how to decide how many signatures can fit into such a journal and how much space do I need in between of the signatures. And if you do something like this, and if you follow this video and this like tutorial, then please don't freak out if what you hear now, see now, and if you do it then, doesn't work with the first try. It, in my eyes, it can't work with the first try. I mean, I would be happy if it would work, and if you know, if you followed my tips here, and if then you have an easier job, of course, that would make me really happy. And it would be fantastic if this works for you for the first time after watching this video. That would be like, you know, the greatest compliment I could get. Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is this whole thing took me years to figure out a way that works every single time, and that needs experience. And if you are a beginner with junk journaling, if you know me, you know that I don't like the word beginner in combination with junk journaling. But if you have never done something like this, then please don't be like, you know, oh, that sounds complicated, I will run away and I won't do this. Please just try it out. You need to do it to make your own experiences and to come to your own conclusions about what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And only because I found my way. That doesn't mean that this way works for you as well. Perhaps you want to do it totally different. Yeah, so let me try to explain how I found the amount of signatures, meaning 3, and how I decide how much space I want to have in here. And as you can see, my signatures are ready. Yeah, so they are all decorated. All of the pockets are in here. And I can later on still put some ephemera in, but the main thing is done. I like to do that first because then I can also, when I work on my signatures, yeah, I have my papers and I have my embellishments and I work on the single pages, then I can take this thing and put it in here and see if this can already work. Meaning if the cover here is parallel to the desk and parallel to this here. And I can already like feel if this can work or if this is too much. I don't like when my journal is later on like this, meaning I pay attention that I don't have too many pages and that I don't have too bulky ephemera. If you have your signatures done and you realize then, oh, that is too thick, then you can at this stage of the project still cut the spine off, make the spine wider so that your pages fit in if you don't want to take pages out. I think that is the good thing of having like a cover and the pages. And if you now realize something is like not good or I don't like how it is, then you can still cut that off, make it wider and make it fit. Yeah. So now let me try to explain this. Holy moly. When I have taken my ruler and I've centered this here, I have told you I can see that 3.5 millimeters would fit in here. 3.5 centimeters, I'm so sorry, would fit in here so that I still have 2 black slots on the left and the right, which are big enough. How to decide if they are big enough? Have the cover material thickness in mind, glue, fabric, and you have to feel how thick that will be in the end. We want to leave a few millimeters, I'm so sorry, a few millimeters here. Meaning, if you do this several times, then you can learn to feel that this is enough. Yeah. So from the beige material here until the end of the green material, there's a few millimeters, and I don't have to measure that now because I have learned that I can feel that this is enough. If you're not sure, then of course you could also take a material like this, glue a tiny scrap of the fabric you want to use here on top, let that dry and put that into the slot here. Then you could also see that, yeah? So, or you take, you can't cut a piece off from your book, but you could take a similar material, make like a prototype of the thickness of the end result and put that into the slot. Then you can also see how much space you would need here. And the thing is now, when I have 3.5 centimeters, which fit in here for my new spine, I have to decide how much space I want to leave in between of the signatures. And before I have started creating my signatures, I have already thought about that. Because one of the biggest questions is, how many pages per signature do I need for a junk journal? And in my eyes, that is a question which is impossible to answer because it of course depends on what you want to do on your pages. If I had, for example, a notebook with completely empty pages, yeah, I only have, some coffee dyeing or some stenciling, but nothing else. Yeah, if my pages are all like this, some printables perhaps, and, something like that, but no embellishments, then of course I can put way more pages into one signature than here, because here I also have some pockets, for example, which add a little bit of bulk. When I put a tag in here, there's even more like bulk. But in this journal, there are also some thicker embellishments, like, for example, this little ruffle here. So the paper is, you know, has several layers because I have put that under my sewing machine, and I have made this little ruffle from this purple paper. I have buttons here with this little cluster below, meaning this is really bulky. And the thing is, you have to feel and you have to get this experience of how many pages you want to add to your signatures then. And I like to take my signatures when I have them and put them into the cover. Oh, I'm so sorry. And then I can already see what they are doing. I try to, let me hold this the other direction. So now they are not in the right position, but in a position where you can see them. Later on, they will be a little bit more down because, you know, they will not stay here. I want to have a little space equally on every side of the journal, of course. But I do this and I hold it like so that you can see it better. And here you can already see the distance that the signatures want to have, meaning listen to your signatures. Yeah, if they are like really close to each other and this is still a rectangle without pressing it together, of course, then you can see how wide they want to be apart, how far they want to be apart from each other. And when you now take your ruler, you can see that this is approximately 1 centimeter in between of each signature. Can you see that? Totally easy. It took me years to come to this idea to do it like this, because normally you sit there, you have your signatures, and then you think, yeah, what the heck shall I do? Shall I leave a centimeter or less? I mean, in the past, when I started with junk journaling and I saw people leaving 1 centimeter in between of the signatures, I was like, what the heck? That is so annoying and that drives me crazy. I don't want to have this slot there. I was really uncomfortable with this slot in between of the signatures, but that is something you have to live with the junk journal. And wait, I will pick up my first junk journal and show you what I have done. Totally idiotic. I was an idiot when I have done that, but perhaps it's a thing for you to know and to pay attention to if you have never done this. Let me quickly pick my first junk journal to show you that. This is so funny. So this is a journal about Rome, about my first travel to Rome. And that is also the reason, I mean, this vacation in Rome was the reason why I started junk journaling. And here's another thing that I want to mention to encourage you, because as you can see, this is really a monster. And this was my first try. Yeah, I wouldn't say that if it wasn't my first try. Yeah, meaning, yes, it is possible as a beginner to make something like this. Please don't be like, oh, it's too complicated, I can't do this. Just try to find this motivation and the strength to do this, because it is possible. If I can do this or could do this, you can do that as well. And as you can see, this has a hidden spine, meaning I started with something where the most people say, oh, don't do that as a beginner. Because hidden spine, that sounds like it is something really difficult. But as you can see, this has a hidden spine. It is possible, yeah? And I could manage it. It took me hours. I think it took me even days to figure that out. I watched a lot of YouTube tutorials, yes, and I put time and effort into this. But that doesn't mean that it isn't possible. Do you know what I mean? So please just try it. You can do that. And I have even chosen the most difficult material for doing this, because this is some material. This is some leather from an old leather pants. Yeah, so that is a traditional style of pants here in Austria. And I wanted to have something, you know, from Austria to Italy. So I wanted to have this Austrian feeling on the outside. So I have taken this. This would otherwise have went to the trash can, and I have taken this material. It was so hard to handle because look, this is like sewn here. It is really heavy here, and that was really difficult, but it worked. So, and then with these slots, you know, when you have your signatures in your journal, and I find this so funny, then of course, if you have this, later on there's a little slot in between of the signatures. Yeah, I'm talking about this slot here. And when I made this, I was like, what the heck? I don't want to have the slot there. So what I have done, and that is really not good, is I have, so here is, what is this? Is this the thread I've used to sew this? Seriously? Louise? No, that can't be the thread. Ah, here is already... Is this already the page what I was searching for? I don't know. Let me see. Because I have glued the last page of the signature to the next first page of the next signature. And of course, that is a really stupid idea because then it gets totally stiff. Where is this? Here, I think. Yeah, here. Can you see this? Here. No. This is a flip out. What have I done here? And then, where is the last page? Yeah, I think it must be, when I look from here to from an angle, it must be this page somehow. So, meaning I didn't want to have the slot in between of the signatures, so I've glued the first page of the next signature to the last page of the signature before. And because of that, we have this weird stuff here. And of course, this can't lay flat. It will never lay flat. And you have this stiff thing, which is, of course, not good. I think, can you see that when I do it like so? You can see I obviously have cut the last page from the other signature to then glue this material on top, because you can still see the cut here, and that is nothing that you want to have. So here the same. Here's the next thing, and look how stiff this is. And this is always like, yeah, standing like so. What is this? This is really weird. Meaning I don't have the slot anymore, but I also have something like this. But do you know what? I love this journal so much, and I flip through this journal so often. There's also a flip through about this available on my channel. I will link that down below for you as well if you want to see this. And the thing is, there are some things where you watch tutorials, I think, and then you think, huh, that is not so good, and I don't like that, because you think I don't like it. But you need that, and that is this with these slots. You need the slots, otherwise you would have something weird like this. So let's do this. Go out of my way, please. And then let's talk about the 3.5 centimeters space we have here. Yeah, so we have seen when we put the signatures into the cover that they want to have a centimeter in between. Oh, and if you put that in here and you measure that, and this is like, you know, here it's perhaps 1.3 centimeters, and here it's 0.8 centimeters, which the signatures are showing you, then please use just the average, is that the word? I think so, of that. Yeah, if you have more here and less here, and you think, okay, if I make an equal space in between of the signatures, then it's approximately 1 centimeter. That is exactly enough. Yeah, so for this plan. And now the thing is, if we take this ruler, and of course this works with inch as well, if we take this and if we then look to always like a 0.5 centimeter or 1 centimeter, so that we have like that we don't have odd measurements. Yeah, so I like to start with 0, and then I pay attention to 0.5, which is here, then 1, 1.5, 2, and so on. And you could do that with inch as well. You could just, you know, take these little, I think this is 1/4 of an inch, isn't it? So that you have 4 of these little squares per inch, and you can do that, of course, as well with these little squares, what I'm doing here with 1/2 of a centimeter. Meaning, if my front cover would be at 0 centimeters, then my back cover would be at 3.5 centimeters, so that we can have a good space here and still have the black slot. But then the problem is, if we want to leave 1 centimeter in between of the signatures, how to do this here? Yeah, how to do that? Because if I would start at 0.5 centimeters with my first signature, and I would leave 1 centimeter then to the next signature, I would be at 1.5. If I then do the same for the third signature, I'm at 2.5, and then I have 0.5 until the other cover comes, but I have 0.5 left over then. And to be honest, I don't want to struggle with counting millimeters. Why? There's absolutely no reason for that. So meaning, if I decide I want to have, let me quickly put that, like, you know, on a paper so that you can see that bigger. Where's my pen? If I have 0 here and 3 here, so of course this is now way too big, yeah, but I want you that you can see that really well. Then here is 1, here is 2, and we have found out that 3.5 is the end, meaning here's the back cover, here's the front cover. But if we put the first signature here to 0.5, the second one here, and the third one here, then we would have the centimeter in between of the first and the second signature, the centimeter in between of the second and the third signature, and this space here is 0.5 then, which is totally enough. Of course, if you have enough space, you could leave a centimeter here as well, but we don't have this space in this case because this here is what we have left over, and this is only 0.5 centimeters. If this was a centimeter, I could spread that equally to the front and the back. Yeah, but this is only 0.5, meaning if I would take this and divide it in half, then I would have 0.25 centimeters, which I have to add here and here, and that is totally annoying. So what we are going to do now is we are ignoring this shit, but only for our 3 signatures, meaning cover 0.5, first signature, 1 signature, sorry, I'm saying that again. Here's the front cover, 0.5 centimeters, first signature, 1 centimeter, second signature, 1 centimeter, third signature, 0.5 centimeters, cover. Yeah, so that is what we have in mind now. But when we now make a template, we have to bring this little shit back into our mind. And yes, I say shit, and I say that and with knowing what shit means, because it is shit, because we have to do something now. So let's take this paper, and I like to take grid paper because I know that on this grid paper, one of these little squares is 0.5 by 0.5 centimeters. I'm sure you can find grid paper in your area, even if you work with inch as well. Try that out. If you have never done it before, give it a try, because I think it is really helpful. So then I like to cut the first square off here so that I can make sure that I have full squares, because when I buy such a paper pad, it can happen that with the print of the squares, here there's only like, you know, not a full square, but something that is less than a full square. And then I measure here 3.5 centimeters. So we have the shit in mind. And I can easily do that because I can just count my squares here. That is really helpful because this paper trimmer shows inch with these little squares here. So this could be helpful for you if you work with inch and if your grid paper also shows inch. Yeah, but for me this is a little difficult, but it's easy because I can count the squares. So 2 squares are 1 centimeter. 1, 2. I have to do it like this, can't see it. 1, 2, 3. So meaning here is 3.5. So that I now can line the line of the grid paper up with my paper trimmer. Could also cut that with your scissors, but yeah. Oh no. What is that? Let me quickly do that again, because can you see this is not so accurate? This is not good. If you have something like this, please use this as a collage material. Don't throw it away, but do it again, because it's not so good when you have this little like distance there. 1, 2, 3.5. Okay, let's try it again. Because this template has to be really exact now. Yeah, so this has to be exactly 3.5 centimeters now. And it has to then fit in here so that you still have your black slot, which is like, you know, big enough, like so. And then I line it up with the top here really, really exactly. Press this down, make a little mark here, and then I cut this off. Double check, because if this is too long, then later on you get problems. Meaning I want to have this template exactly the same height like my book cover is. Yeah, so from here to here. And then when I have this, I can use this for the rest of the steps. Then I take something like medium thick paper. You could also use some leftover scrapbooking paper for this. You could use some food packaging or something like that. This is just from an old file folder. And I want to use this for my hidden spine piece, which I want to cut now. Meaning I take this, I first mark the height here, and then I mark the width so that I then can cut this. And perhaps you think, oh, this is flimsy. You have to search for a material which is like sturdy, which can't break or something. But from my experience, I can tell you it is good to have a material which is not too thick, because I can always cut 2 of these and put them on top of each other and glue them together. I take this, I put this in here, I imagine that there's glue in between of this, and then I do this. And if this wiggles around like so much, like you can see here, then I know I need a second layer. If this was thicker already, 1 layer would be enough, but I like to have thinner paper to be able to determine the thickness by gluing several pieces on top of each other, because I like to recycle, like, you know, old things like this file folder, for example, or even food packages or something like that. I mean, that is good material. Or if I buy, you know, some ideology stuff, I save my packages. It's only an example. It's for any other kind of craft supply as well. I like to save those packages and then later on use them for exactly something like this. So when we have that, we can take this, double check if this is really exactly the same size, and it is. Yoo-hoo! That's really nice. We need this little guy here, and then I like to take some bookbinders glue, which I have in this little bottle here. And by the way, this is the bookbinders glue by Crafty Motions. This is my favorite bookbinders glue in the world. I have tried different brands, but this is for me the best one. But I also think that it depends on where you live, how good you can handle that, because here in Austria we have like really different temperatures from one day to the other. Sometimes the temperature is not consistent, and we also have different humidity. I think that is the word, you know, the water which is in the air. And with this, I made the experience that I can handle the glue no matter which weather it is, no matter how hot or cold it is. I mean, you shouldn't freeze this, yeah? And in the summer, I try to keep this in a, you know, dark and little colder place, not in my fridge, but, you know, do you know what I mean? So don't think, oh, Crafty Motions bookbinders glue, I have to buy that. Buy a small bottle. If you have never used that before, try it out if it works in your area. And then, you know, you can decide if you want to buy another one. And I've just put that into this little squeezing bottle here. Where is my paintbrush? So that I can easily put it on here. In the past, I have taken a paintbrush and I have taken the glue directly from the bottle, but do you know why I don't do that anymore? Because when you open the bottle and you put your paintbrush in, you never know how much glue do I have here. You touch with your paintbrush the inside of the jar, which is sticky. Everything is sticky here. Then you think, where to put my paintbrush? If I have it here, it's way easier to spread. And when this is empty, I just fill it up from the bottle here. So when I have this here, I can just spread this. And I try to get this, you know, covered. Not too thin, but not too thick. But that is also something that you learn with glue, that you get a feeling how much you would need. And bookbinders glue, in my eyes, is really good for nearly everything, but that's only my personal opinion because it dries fast, not too fast, so you have still a little wiggle room to bring this together really exactly, but when it's dry, it is flexible, so it stays flexible. Meaning, if you have areas in your journal, like for example the cover, which you want to open and close, of course, then when the glue is flexible as well, you don't have these noises which could drive you crazy. If you have a glue which dries really stiff, then it could happen that your journal makes like, you know, when you open and close it, and you don't want that. Probably you don't want that. So we are going to line this up really exactly. Then I like to take a brayer, go over this, like so. Make sure that this sticks really well. Then, oh no, we have this. And then we can take our fabric and we put it to the table like this with the, you know, with this side like so. You could also do it the other way around. But then I like to fold it in half to find the middle. Just press this down. I like to put that to my grid to see if everything is exactly where it should be, meaning I want to have a little mark here. Oh, sorry, you can't see that. I want to have a little mark here on the top and the bottom where the middle of the fabric is. So when I then open that, I can see that really well, and I can of course also put a little mark here with my pencil like this, and I take this little guy here, where is my ruler now, and I figure out where the middle of this is. So why is this not exactly 3.5 now? 3.7. We do have 3.7 here. What did I measure when I measured this? 3.7. Is that really a problem? No, it isn't. It is straight and it is a rectangle. So that is, perhaps this is good that this happened, because my template here, meaning the grid paper, is 3.5 centimeters, and as you can see, my green paper is a little bit more. I think that came because I used this and my pencil, which is probably not totally sharp, and this is what my pencil made, meaning the thickness of the pencil line. But that doesn't matter. Put your template on here, and then you see you can line it up and you can center it, yeah, so that it is really in the center. If you're not sure, take this, because this has to go in here later. If it's more than 1 or 2 millimeters, you know, then you probably have to check if this still fits and if the slot, the black slot, is still enough. Yeah, so make sure that this is not too wide. You need this black slot here and there. But this is okay, as when it is a rectangle and not wonky, then this millimeter here and here is really not the baddest thing. And the good thing is, if we have no 3.7 is as hard to divide into 2 like 3.5 would be. So this would be then 1.85 would be the middle. Holy moly. 1.8. I'm so sorry. Hopefully now you don't laugh because my hair looks really weird, I guess. Like this. And we need this here as well. 1.85. This is here. Yeah, so that we have the middle of this piece as well. That is totally fine. So then we can take this again and put some bookbinders glue on here as well. And how often did I make this mistake? So let me mention that. If you have never done this before, this could be confusing. So later on, we want to see this side of the fabric in the journal inside, of course, meaning this fabric shall go in here like so, and the pages shall go in here like so. And we want to sew the pages to the fabric, which has this thing on the back to make it sturdy and to make our hidden spine, meaning we don't want to see this green shit on the inside. Yeah, so you have to pay attention, especially when you have a fabric which has like a print or a pattern on both sides. Here it's easy because I can immediately see that this is the back side of the fabric and that this is the front. So I know that I glue my piece to the back, to the white side here. But there are some fabrics where you have a print on the back side as well, and you have to, you know, go close with your eyes to the fabric to see which is the front and the back. Make sure that you take this. I feel weird to say that because perhaps you are not so stupid like I am, or I was. And perhaps this can't happen to you, but if there's a chance, then please, you know, I wouldn't feel so alone if that would happen to you as well. But please make your own mistakes, yeah? So that's why I'm telling you what happened to me in the past so that it can't happen to you. I take this little mark here, which I have here, and line that up with one of the lines here on my grid mat, and here on the bottom as well. And then I can take this little thing, and I have my marks here on the front, so meaning I turn this around and put the glue on here so that I can later on, when I glue this, still see the marks. Otherwise this would be hard, because we want to glue this piece now to the center of the back side of this fabric. And another thing why I like to use bookbinders glue, by the way, is that you can put a good amount of the glue onto, this is probably a little bit too much, onto the piece, that you can spread it easily, and that you can, the glue doesn't soak through the fabric, even if you have thin fabric, if you don't use too much glue. Yeah, you can see I get rid of some of this glue because I can see that it is too much, but you can, easily do that without having the danger that this dries within seconds. So you have a little time to do this. And now this is the amount that I have on here, but that depends on the glue, of course. It's like experience as well. You have to find that out with your glue and your temperature and everything. And now I line this up here. I pay attention that I have this on my marks here on the fabric, and that I also have this little distance here and here, and we need that later for our fluff around the journal, just like this. Of course, you could measure this distance as well and make another mark if you want, but with the time, when you do that more often, then you can easily feel and eyeball that. Ooh. Oh, my brayer. Holy moly. Then I like to brayer over this. Then we can take this off and press this down from here a little bit. And then we can take our paintbrush, put that into water so that it can't dry out. And then we can dry this. You could also let this air dry, but I have no problems using my heat tool here, because that is another good thing about bookbinders glue. Bookbinders glue has not so much water in it, like, for example, some cheaper glues from a dollar store or something like that. And the more water you have in a glue, the more danger you have that when you use a heat gun, that your piece gets wonky now and that it makes like waves, and we don't want that. I want this to be as flat as possible, and with bookbinders glue you can see there's absolutely no problem. Here happens nothing, I mean, except that the glue dries, yeah, but there's no wonkiness involved in this process. So then, when we have that, we should make sure that we know on this piece and on this piece and on our book cover where the top is. Meaning, this is easy. If when this is the front cover and I open this, of course, here's the top. Where is my pencil? Meaning, here is the top. I like to make this arrow for safety reasons, yeah, so that I don't accidentally turn my cover around. But this is of course clear. It must be the top here, yeah. There's no other chance. And here it's not. It doesn't matter where the top is. You could also turn it around and make the arrow. But in my eyes, it's important that you make an arrow, because we now want to determine where the holes for our signatures, for the thread which we want to use to sew the signatures, where the holes are going to be. And we want that it is the same on our template, like on here, because I want to use this template for making the holes into the spine here, and at the same time for making the holes into the signatures in a second. So I'm going to use the same template for both steps so that everything is like, you know, in the right position. Why do we need these arrows? I take my template and I just fold it in half to find the middle. I just give it a little, you know, pressure here so that I can see where the middle is. This line that I'm making now, I make only for you. Without the camera, I won't make this line. And I can't recommend to make this line when you can see the fold. You know, when your eyes are good enough that you can see the fold, then don't make this line don't get confused. Because it's enough when you can see the fold so that you can see where the middle is. I will explain in a second why we need the middle. Because I now want to sew my signatures in with a 6-hole pamphlet stitch. Why 6 holes? Why not 3 holes or something else? That is an easy answer. I found out, like, in German, the word is Faustregel. If I would translate that to English, it would mean fist rule. And it has to do with your hands, by the way. I found that out yesterday. So, meaning, look, normally, when I make a journal where I have, for example, digital paper in the journal, holy moly, and I have printed my printables to DIN A4. Yeah, this is a DIN A4 sheet of paper, or I buy some paper in DIN A4, then I like to make my life easy and make my signatures DIN A5, meaning if I fold the full sheet of DIN A4 into half, then I have DIN A5. Yeah, so that is the name for this size. And when I have this, then you can see this is really long. Yeah, so this is about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and a quarter inches high. Meaning, imagine you would have 3 holes in this length of your signatures. Imagine this is like this, yeah, with several pages. And you would put, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 hole in the middle, like here. And you would then put, for example, another hole in here and a 3rd hole here to use a 3-hole pamphlet stitch for the binding. You can see that the distance from the first and the last hole to the edge of the signature then would be a ton. Yeah, this is just really, really much. Because when the paper is in your journal and the spine is laid on here, the thread comes out here, then this whole part is loose. Yeah, there is no thread. This would be in the cover later without having a thread which could hold it. Yeah, so imagine this was sewn in here, then this whole area here would have no thread. That is not sturdy enough in my eyes. If you think it's sturdy, try it out. Yeah, Tim would say, you do you. Could you do it? Yes, you could. But in my eyes, that's not good. It's like, you know, a little shitty. Because we want to have a sturdy journal. Yeah, we want to have something sturdy. Meaning, if I have a page which is DIN A5, or like this, it's smaller, which is like approximately the size of my hand, I use 6 holes. If this was smaller than my hand, I could also use only 3 holes, because then this distance between the holes is not so far, not so extreme. Imagine you would have 3 holes on this length. Can you see that? You would still have this amount of paper here. Oh, it's not in the center. But this is still too much in my eyes, where this would be without thread. Imagine the signature would be smaller than my hand. Let's say it's like, it's like this. Smaller. Yeah? Can you see? Then we would only have this distance and this distance. And this is totally enough. Yeah, this is about, I would say, 2 centimeters or so. Yeah, it's 2 centimeters from the top and the bottom hole to the end of the paper. That would be okay for me. And a distance here, which is 5 centimeters approximately would also be okay. Because what I think is when you sew this in, yeah, and your thread goes like in to the hole here, and then it goes in the center of the signature. Oh, I'm so sorry. Where's the center? Must be here. It comes in here and it goes down, and then here's the next hole somewhere, and it goes out and along the outside, and then it comes in and it goes back. Yeah, you know, this what is shown in here. If that is more than 5 centimeters, that is in my eyes too much for having a sturdy journal in the end. So I want to make sure that the distance between my holes is not too much. That's what I'm trying to say. And by the way, 5 centimeters, let me check this here on my mat. 5 centimeters is approximately 2 inches. Yeah, so make sure that this is not more than 2 inches away from each other. But that is only my opinion and my experience. If you want to do it differently, please try it out. And if that is successful, of course, you know, let me know, and let's be happy together. So that means we take the signatures, we bring into our mind if they are all the same height. That is very important. If you have signatures that have different heights, then please choose the tallest signature now for measuring the next thing. In my case, my signatures are all the same size, so I can just take one. It doesn't matter which one. And then I take this. And now we have to have in mind, this is the template for the spine, meaning this is the height of the book. Meaning, if I put this here, this is of course shorter than the spine is. Meaning, we take this, line this up, and we center that on this template. Because we want to have the same distance here and here later on. And this is then this little frame where the cover then is bigger than the pages. Yeah, so I like to eyeball that because, you know, I have made over 100 journals in the meantime since I started, and I like to eyeball that. But you do you. You can also, of course, measure that. And by the way, yes, I know, and I take the outer page away because the others are a little distressed with a paper distresser. So this is my main measurement now. And by the way, I know that the sentence, you do you, is not my sentence, and that Tim Holtz has said this sentence. There was something like a really weird, in my eyes, weird discussion below some one of my older videos, and to be honest, I have to measure this now. And in that video I said, you do you, and people have said, Neb, that is a sentence by Tim Holtz, you can't use that sentence. I'm so sorry that English is not my mother language, and that sometimes I learn from people which are role models for me, not only with crafting, but also with speaking the language. So it could happen that you hear some sentences which I have learned from other people. And yes, I know that you do you is something that Tim Holtz says very often. And I don't want to say that this sentence is my sentence, yeah? Just to make that clear for those people who have written that. I'm just trying to learn English, and I'm trying to get better every single day, and that also means that I learn some phrases from other people. Thanks for listening. So here we go, meaning this mark here and this mark here shows us how tall our signatures are. So we can know that this space here and this space is where the cover is just a little longer than the pages are. When you have, oh, I just said that, when you have signatures which are not the same size, choose the tallest signature for this step for measuring this. Everything which is smaller is not so important because you can then center that within these marks here later. But it's important that you have, you know, the maximum height of this thing for making these marks. Since we've made the little mark here for the middle, we can easily see that we need 2 holes somewhere here. We need then 2 holes here and 2 here, so that we have a total of 6 holes. You know, I've just explained why I want to use 6 holes instead of only 3 or another number. So I like to start in the middle here. And now there was some confusion as well. I have explained that in one of my videos from the beginning of the year, but perhaps here are some new people and you are confused or still confused or whatever. Let me explain this again. Because this little line here, you can see that it is not in the center of the square from the grid paper here. It is not the center of the square, and that is also the reason why we made this arrow here, so that we know where the top is, because with the height of the whole paper here, we will never get this center line in the center of one of these squares. That will never happen because we have an odd measurement. Like, you know, if this is like 19.7 centimeters long, then this can't be in the middle of one of these squares. But that is the reason for this arrow, because we can now ignore this little piece of the square and this little piece of the square, which are not the same size. We count the next full square, and then I like to go approximately 4 or 5 up. 1, 2, 3, 4. If we have 4, then it is 2 centimeters, meaning the whole. Yeah, let's do that. Can we do that in inch? Is that possible? I'm trying to do that in inch so that you can. I mean, you could, you know, count these little squares as well. It's approximately the same. Yeah, can you see? One of these is approximately one of these, but not 100% the same. But we said that we don't want to have more than 2 inches in between of the single holes, meaning I try to spread the holes here now, but without getting over these 2 inches. Yeah, so if I am here and here, then I would have exactly 2 inches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Can make a little mark here. This is then, yeah, you know, it's about an inch approximately. And here I ignore this little square as well, and I count the same amount of squares like here, meaning 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I am here. Is that correct? Yeah, so that when I center this now, I have approximately 2 inches. It's a little tiny bit more, but you know, that really doesn't matter. But this is an orientation, yeah? That is approximately 2 inch and not way more, not 3 inch distance. Do you know what I mean? So then we can decide to count from here to the top and put 2 holes here. Ooh, I'm so sorry. 2 holes here in between of this mark and this hole, or where the hole will be. So we can also use this here, of course. And let's say we want to have an inch here. I think that is really good, so that this is like also harmonious somehow with the holes. Meaning 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we have this here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we have this here, and we do the same thing on the other side here on the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And when you have that, you can probably really easily understand why we made this arrow. Because we have counted these squares here now, and the distance here, like the distance above the line, I mean the distance between these holes, is the same like below this line. But the line here, the middle line, is not in the middle. Sorry, it's in the middle, but it's not in the middle of one square. Meaning, if I would accidentally turn this around, then the whole thing wouldn't work anymore. And that is the reason for this arrow, and that we have in mind where the top is. Because when we now take this and put this on here, then we have our holes in the right position with both of the arrows here. And when we then take the signature, and here's the top of the signature, and with this template we make the holes into the signature, then they are in exactly the right position. Imagine we would turn this around after we made the holes here, and we make the holes in here with the arrow on the bottom, then this wouldn't fit anymore and the signatures wouldn't be in the right place. So please have this arrow in mind. So what we are going to do then is we are going to take something like a book. Where is it? Oh, here. I like to take a book, or you could also take some other like squishy material where you can poke holes in, you know, that you don't destroy your table, just protect your table. Then we take this little guy here, and I like to put my template on here, but without using paper clips. Perhaps you know older videos from me. There you can see me clipping this with paper clips. And in the meantime, I've learned that that is not the yellow from the egg. That is basically German. Do you know that? It's not the yellow from the egg. You know, that is not so good, because if I would use a paper clip here and I would clip this here, the fabric could go like over here. I can't see anything anymore here on the top. I can't see if it is lined up. The other thing is, if I use a paper clip, the paper clip could be in the way for making my holes here. And the main point is that the paper clip makes the material a little wonky. And when you then poke with an awl or a pokey tool into the material here, it could happen that the holes are not in the right place. If you can't hold this with your fingers in place, like, you know, I will in a second just press this down and then it's there. You could alternatively use clamps like this, because with clamps like this, so these are normally for sewing, so that you can hold your fabric together really easily. And as you can see, this looks like a little shoe, and this here is really flat, and you can open them like so. But if you close them, then again this transparent piece is still flat, meaning if you put this here and you press this down, you can place it with the transparent part of this to the table, open it, and then clip it, and this is then still really flat. Of course, there's a little hill because of the material of the clamp, but it's something different than with a paper clip. A paper clip makes like, yeah, something like, can you see this here? Something like this to your paper, extremely. Yeah, so this would be like from here. If you look from here, this is really weird, but this is good. So let's just do it like so. You could also take only one and then press the rest down here, or you just take a second one. I like to just hold it with my fingers because, you know, then I don't have this problem here. But if you can't do that, or if you are not sure if you can do it, then you can use this as a help. And now I know where I have to make my holes. And that is also why I use the grid paper, because we have just made 6 marks where we want to put our holes, but we have, of course, 3 signatures, meaning we would need 6 holes for each signature, meaning 6, 12, 18 holes in total. But I only need 6 marks to make all of my holes, because I know that on this row there have to be 3 holes, and I know where they have to be because of the thoughts I had before. I know on this row there have to be 3 holes, and so on. 3 holes on each row. Where to put the holes? Easy. How much confusing stuff can you talk in one video, Louise? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. This is like totally unprofessional, but I just realized that we forgot something here. Perhaps it's because I don't have enough protein. Before we, did you realize what we did wrong? You can check if you if you could follow well, and if you have noticed what I did wrong while I'm eating this. Protein, 21%. This is vegan, no added sugar, 100% natural. You know what? I am on a diet at the moment. Yeah, that is not even true. I tried to change my eating. Holy God, this is very hard. Oh, this is good. Ooh. And perhaps this helps that my brain can work better. This is my breakfast and my lunch. Why? Because I'm trying to make a professional tutorial here and explain every single shitty detail, and then something like this happens to me. That is totally weird. Look. We said 0.5 in between of the covers and the first and the last signature. 1 centimeter in between of the signatures, right? Meaning we have a total of 3 centimeters. We have ignored this shit on the measurements here, but here we have it, but we have to ignore it on the template as well, of course. Meaning I did miss a step, because this, of course, this green thing, which is our new spine, has to be 3.5 centimeters because it has to fit into the journal. It has to fit in here, and we want to make the spine as wide as possible with still having the black slot, but we want to make this bigger to avoid this problem, yeah, that this can't move so much anymore. But with this plan, our template can't be 3.5 centimeters if we want to use the squares for easy measuring where the holes have to be. Meaning, of course, we have to cut one of these little guys off, meaning one of these squares, so that we are left with 3 centimeters of this thing. Otherwise, we can't use the squares on the template. And that is the reason why we use the grid paper, because we want to use the squares. Do you know what I mean? So meaning we have now the possibility that we can see 0.5, then there's the first signature, and then a centimeter, which is 2 squares, second signature, 2 squares, which is another centimeter, third signature, and 0.5 until here. Yeah, so meaning we have to center this here now. And that is really easy because 3 centimeters are 6 squares. And we still have this little mark here on our template so that we know that there's the middle. We can make, if we want, a little line here, but we can also see 3 squares must be the middle, so that we then can line that up there to the center. And if you want, you can clip this here. Oh, this is not 100% exactly, so now we have it just like so, and then I can do the same here on the bottom so that I now can make my holes. And what does this make? When we thought about 3 centimeters and where the signatures have to be, we talked about 0.5 in the front and 0.5 in the back. Later on, we will have 0.5 plus this green, 0.5 plus this green in the front and the back, but that doesn't matter. Barbara from 49 Dragonflies, if you are watching now, that is also an answer to one of your questions, because Barbara has tried that out and she has asked me how to do that if you don't have full squares, and that is exactly the case here. Meaning I just cut it off so that I can measure easily with the squares, and then I center my template on the green thing. Yeah, so that then this and this is not important. You just have a little more space later in between of the first and the last signature. That's all. Yeah, but that is not a problem. Just do it like this, Barbara. So then, after having that, I need another bite of this stuff. This looks a little bit like dog food, but to be honest, it also tastes like dog food. I never had dog food, but I imagine that this is the taste of dog food. So here is the first mark, meaning we can now exactly see where the holes have to be. I make 3 and then I explain. I can easily see that without measuring, because one square is 0.5, meaning the first hole has to be here on the row, here where the mark is, and there where the first square ends. 1 centimeter is 2 squares, meaning 1, 2, here has to be the next hole, next centimeter, 1, 2, yeah, so 2 squares are 1 centimeter. Then we have the third hole here, and we have 0.5 here. Meaning, I can now easily do that on the other rows as well. 1, 2, 3. And I found out a really helpful trick. In the past, I have held my awl like this and tried to find the position for the hole, realizing that always there's a shadow from my hand. You know, I have light here and I have a shadow there, and then I can't see that so well, and my hand is always in the way so that I can't see exactly where I have to poke the hole. That was really difficult in the past. Now I found out, hold your awl like this, so meaning your hand away from your body and away from the light so that it can't make shadow. Take the tip of the awl and put it there where the hole has to go. Press now, like can you see what my fingers do? I press the awl down and then I lift it up so that it can't move, and then I press down. So meaning just like this, press down, do it like this, press down. And that way you can easily find the hole, and you can also, you know, do it like this and find the right position, move it a little bit so that you are really in exactly the same position. I like to, in the correct position, I mean. So I like to be a little away from that, then I come closer and, you know, I move this around. I don't know if you can see that. Move this around until I am there where it has to be, and then I just poke. And that is then really easy. So that we have then, within no time, these holes. Who is calling me now? Oh, today is such a day. Perhaps that's the reason also why this happened to me with this, you know, ½ centimeter. Today is a day where everyone thinks that I am Google or something. Ah, that drives me crazy. I have to put my phone away. Because, you know, I can see from the angle here of my eyes that someone is calling me, and I don't want to talk to someone now because I want to make this video. I want to finish my journal. Okay, so now we are going to take our signatures, and if you have something like this, this would be really helpful. This is a book cradle. I bought this on Amazon, and there are so many questions about this. This is not available on Amazon at the moment. Otherwise, I would, of course, be happy to give you the link. But I unfortunately don't have a source where to buy something like this. But if you type book cradle into your search machine, then you should be able to find something like this. I know that in the meantime also some Etsy sellers have something like this in a similar way and from like a different material perhaps, but this is really helpful. And if you plan to make more than one junk journal, then this is a really good thing to buy, because you will need that with every single journal. And I say you will need that because if you have it, you will of course use it, and you will in a second see what this is doing. If you don't have something like this, you could alternatively also take a book and find something where you can, you know, perhaps a heavy, for example, other books here and other books here, yeah, so that you can place your book somehow like this, so that you then can use this slot here for poking the holes, meaning that is then an imitation of this slot. But this is really sturdy and it is really helpful, and it helps you to make the holes in the right position. And as you can see, you can place your pages in here, and you can easily flip through the pages now, because now is the last chance to change the order of your pages. Of course, if you find something that you don't like, then please change it now, because in a second the chance has gone. And you can also check, of course, if you have some pages which are upside down and, you know, accidentally upside down. I like to go here with my finger, or you can also take this whole thing and do it like this, so that then the pages go here where you want them. And then you can take either some paper clips or these little guys from the sewing machine and clip this together, so that this makes now that the pages stay together like they are and that nothing can move. I like to put my fingers in here. You could alternatively also take a ruler. If this was short enough, a ruler would also work. Could take a bone folder, for example, hold this and then, you know, clip this together. The main point of this is that everything here is like really in this slot of this little tool, or in the slot of your book if you use a book alternatively to this. And then we want to make sure that everything stays in place, meaning we clip these together. Where is my last clamp? These little guys obviously have feet. They always want to go away. So what the heck happened here? Is this correct? Yeah, okay. So that we then have this, and now we know that here's the top of the signature, of course, so we can, where is my template? Take the template. Here we go. We take this, of course, have in mind that the arrow is here on the top, meaning we put it in here like so and not the other way around. And then we center this in between of these little marks, meaning the top of the signature is here and the bottom of the signature is here, just where we made these little additional marks so that we know where to put this whole thing. Yeah, so meaning the template is longer as the signature now, of course, but that is what we want. But we have to line this up now so that we can get the holes in exactly the right position. Then I like to press this down. I take my awl, and now here where the rows of my holes are and my marks, I make my holes into the signature. And I can see that really well because this line which we've made is touching the paper there, meaning I know here where these little guys are, there has to be a hole. just like this. If you are new to junk journaling or using a tool like this all, I have a little tip. A junk journal is often made from different kinds of papers, meaning different weight of paper. It can happen that you have something really thin on the top and some thicker material on the bottom. I have some half pages here, for example, made from some scrapbooking paper, meaning making the hole here is way more hard, you have to press more than here. So it goes really easily through the material here, but harder through here. Meaning, if I accidentally press too much here on the top where it's really thinner, then it could happen that my awl slides through the hole too much, that I perhaps even touch my table with the tip of the awl, and then you have a hole which is as thick as the awl is here, and that is perhaps a little bit too much. Meaning, take the awl and move it like so, like, you know, like a screwdriver or something, and go carefully with this movement down so that you don't have two big holes. Where am I here? This is the top and this is the bottom. Yeah, okay. I nearly got confused with my own template. So then when we have that, then, you know, when you accidentally press too much with your awl, then it could happen that not only the holes are too big, or for your taste too big, but can you see these little craters here around the holes? That is normal because the paper material has to go somewhere, and if you poke a hole, then this is of course normal. But if you poke too deep with the awl, then this material is also more, yeah, and you don't need such a giant hole for binding this whole thing together. So when we have that, we are going to take our signature, we are going to take this thing, and then we have in mind, and I'm starting to laugh because this happened so often to me. The whole time we've worked on the green side here, meaning on the back side, you have to have in mind that you now turn this around, because this is the back side. This is where we have the glue later, and the cover is on here, meaning this is then in between of the signatures and our book cover. So you have to have in mind that this is not where you want to sew the signatures on. That happened so often to me, I can't even count how often that happened. Meaning we take this, we turn that around, and now we know that here the left first row is the row where we want to put the first signature. Some people also start with sewing in the last signature. When I have journals which have, you know, more than 3 signatures, let's say, so a lot of signatures, I also like to start in the back, but with 3, I can also start in the front. But that's perhaps something you want to try out. If you are new to junk journaling, try that out, to start in the back. Perhaps that is also easier for you. I don't measure the thread. I just take, you know, like enough. I don't like to measure. That is the only thing I think where I can't give you a recommendation about how much you have to use. Where is my needle now? Because I do that, you know, I eyeball that, and if the thread is too short, then I just take another piece and make a knot, and then I can go on. I found my needle. Okay. Oh no, I have a leftover from my German video, which is already in the needle. So let's take that. Let's see. I mean, it's a rough measurement. If you take like 1, 2, 3 times the height, that should be, I mean, a little more, of course, to have some, you know, safety. But 3 times the height plus a little bit should be enough, because it is like in and out and in and out, nothing else. Yeah, so we are going to sew this in by going into the hole, then through the cover and out again. So it's always the same. I like to make a little knot here on the end. And I, to be honest, I make, to be clear, I make more than one knot so that the knot gets thick enough so that it can't slide through my hole in the material here. Just like this. Don't freak your freak. Yes, Tim said that. Thanks, Tim. Because that is just something that is, yeah, it is what it is. It is what it says. I mean, that is what I want to say. Why can't I use his words? So this doesn't have to be nice because we won't see it later, but it has to be sturdy and it has to be thick enough so that it can't slide through the hole which we've made here. So meaning I'm going to start here on the bottom of the first row in the bottom hole. You could also start on the top. That would make absolutely no difference. And, oh, by the way, which thread should you use? This is a really sturdy thread, which I got from my mother. She has made some oki. Do you know oki? These where you can make the little like placements and other stuff, decorative stuff. And this is really sturdy. You could alternatively, of course, use a bookbinder's thread. If I wouldn't have this, and I have a ton of this in my stash because, you know, my mother passed away several years ago and I have this from her. If I wouldn't have something like this and I would have to buy something for sewing my journals, then I would use some bookbinder's thread, but the stability of this is like nearly the same. This is just a little thinner than like a regular bookbinder's thread, but it works. If you have something where you think, can I use that or not, make the test. Just take a single thread, do it like this, really aggressively, yeah, and if you do this, and if it hurts your fingers here, then it's sturdy, and it's good. If it breaks, you know, if it's tearing apart, then it's not sturdy. Do you know what I mean? So you want to have a thread where you can really pull later without tearing the thread. So then we are going to take the signature and I go in here into my, I can't see it, into my bottom hole here, and then I come out in the inside here, fill my thread through here, go to the next hole and go out again, go to the next hole of my spine here, just go through here, and you don't have to pull this now like tight because then it's easier. Yeah, if you have like a little distance here, in my eyes that is helpful because then you can see what you are doing here. Sometimes it's really hard to see the holes, especially if you have fabric that has like a confusing pattern like with this writing here. Then sometimes you can't see the holes so well. But that is good because when the holes are small, then later on when the journal is finished, you can't see them so well as well. And that is good because then they are not so visible. And it looks, you know, like the pages are here with, yeah, automatically. Do you know what I mean? So what do I want to say? Yeah, and because of that, when you can't see the holes so well, it's good when you have this here because it doesn't matter if this is tight now. You can later on pull and then it gets tight automatically. So then I go back in here, next hole, and I do this thing in and out for everything, like, you know, up, next signature down, next signature up. So we have this, we go in here and do this carefully. I like to put my finger here where the hole is so that I can feel the needle. Make sure that you don't hurt yourself, but if you don't, if you do that carefully, you can feel the needle coming out here while you are poking in here. or it's actually not poking. That is the wrong word, because there is already a hole. It's not poking, but do you know what I mean? When the needle is here and you go out, then it is really easy, because, you know, the paper is like, it's easier to come out. Yeah, it never happened to me that I went out and my needle came out here, for example, yeah, not in the hole. But when you go back, it sometimes can happen, especially when you have like flimsy paper for your pages, that you can't come into the center of the signature anymore. Let me show you what I mean. So when I'm here and I go back through the next hole, and now when I have this here like so, and then when I then try to go in here, sometimes it can happen that the paper, even if we have used these clamps, moves a little bit, and that there's space in between of the single pages. And then it can happen that when you go here, that you don't come out in the hole here, but somewhere else, and you poke accidentally into your paper. But when you have your finger here over the hole, then you can feel where the needle is, and you can also feel the needle below the paper if it can't come through here, so that you can avoid holes which are then accidentally in here. Yeah, so that is perhaps a little trick. Hopefully. Sometimes I don't have any idea if this makes sense, what I'm talking here, but I'm so hoping that you can find some helpful information with this video, because really, I really give my best to explain everything, as I said in the beginning, with the tiniest details, because there are so many questions. And sometimes, to be honest, when I make a video, I have the feeling that I give my best and I think about which questions could you have, and I think about that before I start recording, and then I do everything, I edit the video, and I think every question is covered. Upload the video, publish the video, question, 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 question. Do you know what I mean? And there are sometimes things where I don't think about, because I have done it so often, and it got like, you know, a routine for me. And with that, I have problems to think about questions that you could have. Yeah. So with that being said, I am really, really, really hoping that I can cover all of the questions you might have with this video, even if I feel really weird, but that doesn't matter. So we have our thread straight in here. Then I like to close this to make sure that first we don't have loops here, yeah, so that the thread is really, really where it should be. Same on the other side. And that second, and that is really important, I mean, it's the same important like the other fact. If you would have loops here from the thread, then your signature can get loose in the end. And if you don't realize that now, then it's too late, yeah. But the second thing is, if you, when you pull your thread here, so you know, I take the end of the thread and I pull here. If you pull too much, then it can happen that this material gets waves. You want to make sure that here in between of this folded edge here and this material, that there is no space. Yeah, that has to be really, you know, like this. If you have pulled too much, it could happen that it looks like this. You don't want something like this, because when you have something like this, imagine you have that for all of the 3 signatures. What would happen on the back then? You would have a curved thing here, and you can't glue that into your book later, because this has to stay flat as possible, so that we have an easy job to glue that in later. And that is the reason why we want to make sure that this is not too tight. So then, when we have that, we come out here, of course, meaning we go back into the next hole, meaning the top hole of the row for the next signature. And we make then sure that also here on the top, there's everything nice and tight, meaning we don't want to have something like this. This is extreme, I know, but you know, you don't want to have a distance here. You want to make sure that this is really tight, like so. Oh, excuse me. Then we can put this aside for a second. We are going to take the book cradle back and then the second signature. Put this in here. Check that everything is in the right position. This goes now relatively fast here, as you can see, because I have done that before starting recording, because this normally is something where I take my time and where I, you know, think about everything again. And I have decided that I want to have this exactly like it is before I started recording the video. Yeah, so don't be confused, and please take your time when you do this, because this is the moment of truth. Yeah, there's no going back with the order of the pages. When you have them here like so, then they are in this order in your journal later. So let's do this again. Let's place this here, center this, and then poke the holes. Just like this. And I know that some people say, oh, this grid paper is like too flimsy, I can't handle that. I know this is not everyone's taste, but what I want to say is try it out, because this is just so easy. When I see, I'm always so like confused, and my heart hurts when I see people making templates from a plain piece of paper, because that is just so hard to measure. Yeah, you know, I'm like my body is hurting when I see that, because I think there is an easier way, and that is using grid paper. And then I think, why are you making your life so hard when you could use grid paper? But of course, I can't see what is in your brain, and I can't see what works the best for you. But if you have never tried it, or if you have used like normal paper and measured everything, and you know that took you half an hour to do that, then perhaps you want to try the grid paper method. Why am I doing this so weird? Yeah, I know it, because do you know what? When I don't record a process like this with my phone, which is hanging, of course, directly over my table here, then I put my journal a little differently to my desk, and that is why this looks so weird. Because normally, if I won't record this, I would put this to the edge of my desk, and then it would be also closer to my eyes, and I could see that a little better. I'm just thinking if I shall try to change my camera so that you can see what I'm talking about. Let me quickly finish this, and then I will try to get another angle of my camera so that I have an easier job and you can see what my reality would be. So what we are doing here is now we go in and out and in and out, just to the bottom here again. And there's another little trick I want to share with you to get the thread tight in every single spot here, because when you take this, and now I'm here on the, let me quickly go out here. I'm now here on the bottom, and of course the signature is not tied yet, meaning the thread is not tied, meaning I have to pull. And if I now pull only here, that means that this would get tight, but it would take a lot of strength to pull so much that this gets tight as well. And it can happen that then the thread is tighter here and not so tight here. and that is not good because then the signature could move and it looks weird. And also this here, yeah. So what I just said, we came out to the back with the thread from here, and we came back into the next signature, meaning it's the same thread. So what I like to do is I like to open this, pull a little bit here on the bottom, and then I go in here and I pull here first, meaning if I pull this to my body, it gets tight here and it automatically removes loops which could be here or here, so that then this first portion of the thread is already tied. You can press it down with your finger here to hold it in place, and then take the end of the thread and pull here, just like so. And then when you close it, you can see that this is really, really regular, and that this little, like, yeah, a portion of a millimeter, which is like in between of the paper and the material, you can see this little shadow, but it is really, really regular then. So when we have that, I'm going to poke the holes into the third signature with exactly the same method. I will try to get another angle from my camera so that I can show you how I would put this to my table if I wouldn't record this. Hallelujah. So I'm trying to show you what I normally do with this like really weird camera angle. But this is how I would have my journal on my desk if I wouldn't record. So you can see here is the edge of my desk. And now, of course, I have to first go into the last row here, meaning I come out from here, go in here, and then I like to take this whole thing and lay that to the edge of my table like this. And then I can take my signature here, so it has to go in here like this, of course. So then you have to, you know, think that here's the top, but I think that is easy. Then I can easily open this, have my thread here on the back so that it can't get, you know, you know, that it can't be in the way somewhere and so on. And then I can go in here. And the good thing is, I mean, when it comes to coming into the signature, this is probably not so easy to understand why I do it like this. But when I go back to the outside, then the edge of the table is really helpful, because when I go out now, like this, I can then hold this with my hands and slide the thing here so that it hangs over the edge, so meaning in the air, and then I can just take the needle and poke that through here, and I have the sturdiness here. I can really press without this moving, and the needle now goes down, and I can, you know, take my hand here, go under here, yeah, so that I can reach the needle, and I can easily pull the thread through here, and then my hand goes to the back along my body, and my chair is then not in the way, meaning my hand is now behind, now it's here, but when I pull the thread, it goes behind my body. And that makes that the thread can be really straight and I don't have problems. Meaning then I can go back in here like this, take the needle out, and perhaps you want to try that out. This looks really weird, but if you do that, and then you will probably see that it is easier, or perhaps I'm hoping that you see it is easier, because yeah, you know, when I have that on my table, like, you know, in the video footage before, then I always have to pull the thread like to the side, because if I pull that to the back, I have not enough space. My chair is then in the way. And if I sit here like so, it's way, way easier. So here, again, I go out, where's the hole here? And pull this whole thing so that my hand is behind my body. And where is the next hole? Here. I can press here, and that also makes that, I mean, when the green material we have on the other side of the fabric is laying on the edge of the table, I can really push without bending this, so that we don't get folds in here somehow and that we can't destroy the material. That is, yeah, safer also, I would say, to don't destroy this piece here by accidentally being too aggressive. So then we can go, and I also I do it automatically. It's really hard to explain because I do this so automatically. I press down here and my table is here, and I can then pull here without moving the whole thing. So let's go back in here, in here, and last time go out here. And of course, if you're new to junk journaling and you see this, you might think, holy moly, why the heck is the video so long? Of course, that is because I have to explain everything, because I want to cover questions that you had. Yeah, if you do this without the need of explaining something, then of course this would go way faster. So if I would do this without the camera, I would have my signatures in here within, I would say, 10 or 15 minutes. Yeah, and if you practice that, then you will get that fast one day as well. But in the beginning, I can only recommend to take your time to, you know, double check everything, because now we want to make sure that everything is in place. And of course we have to make a knot somewhere here to be able to have this, you know, tied as well. So I like to go into this little thing here. If you have several signatures in your journal, you have this little guy where you can go through and just make a knot. If you have only one signature in your journal, that is also a possibility, of course, then you could go through this little thing and make the knot here. Yeah, that is also possible. So then I go through here, make sure that this is tight, hold this, and I like to make several knots so that I can be really sure that this is tight. And when I have that, I like to cut my thread not too short. That has a reason, because, you know, this is handmade, and when you have a thread with a knot somewhere, it can happen, of course, that it gets loose or it opens or something like that. Even if you have glue here or something, it could happen. Yeah, this is just, you know, a safety thing. Just cut it here so that we have this little security thing here. And then we can put this away. And now I want to put something over here. I want to glue another piece of fabric onto this part here before I glue that into the journal cover. Why? Easy. Because this is not a flat surface anymore now, on the one hand, because we have the threads here, we have this knot here. Meaning, if I would put my glue directly on here and then take this whole thing and glue that in here, I can't see what the glue is doing in between here. Meaning, I can't see if there are areas, like little spots, where no glue is. I mean, you know, you put the glue everywhere and you see glue is everywhere here, but it could happen, how can I explain that? Even if you would put glue all over here, it could happen that with the thickness of the thread, the material lifts up a little bit and that there's a spot where the glue dries, but without being attached to this material. Do you know what I mean? It could happen that there's a little like area of air in between, and then this could get loose with the time, with flipping the pages in the journal later. Meaning, I want to glue something on here to make sure that this green piece and the thread are connected to this, what I glue on here in a second, and I can see what I'm doing here instead of gluing this in here and I don't know what's happening in between here and here. So that means we are going to take something. I will just take a piece of the leftover of this fabric here. That doesn't have to be beautiful, so you can also use like this end here where no pattern is. So because we won't see that later, you could also use a scrap piece or whatever you have. I can't recommend to use something like lace or so, because I mean, you could think we cut this into the same width like the green piece is. And now, of course, you could think, oh, that is a great thing to have something peeking out for more interest on the top and the bottom of the journal. And then you could come to the idea to use some lace, because then if the lace would peek out here and here, it would look nice. But the problem with lace is that you don't have a solid surface here, which you could then later on use for gluing it into the cover. If you want to have lace peeking out here and here, glue some fabric first and then take tiny pieces of lace, just, you know, just a little tiny piece, which then can go here and on the bottom as well. And then you have the rest, the rest of this surface here for gluing, and then you are on the safe side of this whole thing. So I want to have some of these little fluffy things peeking out on the top and the bottom. So I'm going to just fray this a little bit, just like this. Then measure this by putting it on here and cutting it here. Tear this, fray this a little bit. You could also do that later, of course. And then make sure that we don't have like loose threads here in between of this fabric and the green thing. Take your glue and your paintbrush. Just have to make my paintbrush dry. And then we take this little thing and we glue this little thread here down now in between of the fabric and the green material. And you can guess why I'm doing that, because, you know, we have made this knot here, and to be sure that the knot can't open, even if that whole thing is glued together later, I've left this little piece of thread so that when I now put my glue on here, nothing can't happen anymore, nearly nothing, because when I take my paintbrush now and massage this in, this thread is going to be glued down and this knot can't open. Yeah, so that is the reason why I leave this additional thread there. I'm trying to get my glue massaged into the thread, and especially this knot here on the bottom, you could, I'm just realizing, you could also leave a thread here in the beginning as well. Why have I never thought about that? Yeah, that's because you learn new things every single time you do something like this. But that would be a possibility, to just leave another thread like here to be on the really safe side. But I want to soak the thread with the glue now, so that it on the one hand is glued to the green material, and on the other hand it gets glued to the fabric in a second when I put that on top. Hope that makes sense. And that gives the spine also more stability, of course. And if you use a flexible glue like bookbinder's glue, then your spine still stays flexible. Don't make the mistake, please, and use a glue that dries stiff, because then you could get some problems. I don't, I mean, that is personal preference perhaps as well. I don't like when the spine of a book is too stiff, even if this is a hardcover, of course. And the original spine of the book is also not like a flimsy kind of thing. I like to have this, yeah, stiff and flexible at the same time. I mean, sturdy, so that you can see, oh, hardcover, yeah, not something like you know, but at the same time, I want to make sure that my glue can't stiffen this too much. I want to go with my fingers in here. Holy crap, where's the slot? So that I can hold it better, so that I can, like, you know, press around here really well, so that this is really one. And you can also see the threads, like, you know, you can feel them coming through the fabric here a little bit, so that you can feel where the threads are. That is good, because then you know that your fabric is really well attached. You could leave this and let this dry for a while now, but with bookbinders glue, the good thing is the glue has grabbed already, so that I know that I can go on and do the next step. But if you're not sure, or if this feels like really, really, really wet, then please make sure that you let this dry first, so that you can't get problems with the next steps. Because the next thing is, we are going to take the cover now. We are going to open this. We know that here is the top, and then we have the signatures here. I know that this is my first signature, so here must be the top. Then I make sure that we don't have these little guys here, because that can be really annoying in a second. Let's just remove those. And then I like to take a clamp, which is a little bigger than the others, because, you know, this is fat. Is this now? Yeah, this is the front. So, holy crap. It has to go in here like so. And I like to clamp this now, because I want to put my glue first only to the spine here, or here to this piece, which is also easier. So I lay this down here. Just zoomed out a little too much. So what I'm trying to do here is, I want to get this spine from our signatures here exactly lined up with what we have here. And for that, it is good when you clamp this, so that you can still see the edge of the green material here and on the other side. Because then you can just put some glue only to the spine, including the black slot, which is not black anymore in a second. Just like this. Make sure that you have the glue also to the very top and the very bottom of the spine, so that you don't miss any spots there. You want that is really, you know, glued until the very edge of this material. And you can see I'm pretty generous with this, because I want to have some wiggle room now. It's important that you don't have a glue which dries. I mean, you need a glue which dries and grabs, but which dries not too fast, because now you need a little bit of wiggle room and wiggle time. So I'm going to take this and I place this here. First, I'm going to make sure that I feel here and here the green material, and that it is lined up with the cover here. Then I look to this edge here. I can see the green material, so that I can make a nice and parallel thing here. And now the black slot, I eyeball the width of the black slot. That is because we have used this original book cover, and we have used what we had from the book cover, of course. Meaning, if you would make this differently and you would construct the cover from scratch, then you could, of course, measure this somehow, and you won't have to eyeball this. But in this case, I mean, this is really easy. You can just press down with your finger here, and you can press the green material down, so that you can really see that this is parallel, and you can have in mind how wide this is and look to the other side, and you can see it's the same width. Here on the top and the bottom, everything is just wonderful. And this time you need for doing this, in the beginning is of course more than my time here now. And that is the reason why you should use a glue which dries not too quickly. Otherwise, it's glued down here and you can't move it anymore, and then you perhaps have a wonky journal in the end. Another thing you can do is you can close this and you can feel if that is in the right position. You can also check that here, even if the fabric is not glued completely yet, I mean these flaps, but you can look in here and you can see that this is really nice and in the middle. Then we can open this for a moment carefully. You don't want to move this now. And then let's go in here, and if we have a centimeter in between of the signatures, we can use our finger to press this down, because I want to get contact between the green material with the fabric and the inside of the cover now, so that this can grab really, really well and that everything is pressed down really nice. You could alternatively take a bone folder, and if you have only 0.5 centimeters or a quarter of an inch or something like that in between of the signatures, this is good to come in between there. If your finger is too thick to come in here, or you know, I don't want to say that your finger is thick, but you know what I mean. Perhaps your finger is just thicker than the slot. So we can also press here so that this is really, really nice attached. Ooh, nice, really well attached. And then we can take this and just clamp this here for a moment. And as you can see with this clamp, the pages are standing here without like falling to the side or something, so that the glue below here can dry really well now while we are doing the next thing. And that is, we're going to take some more glue, put that on here. And this is also an advantage of this bottle. I think I said that in the past I've often used my big jar here and went in this jar with my paintbrush, but this is so much easier. Just do it like so, and then take your paintbrush and spread the glue here. You have way more control over that, and it is so much faster. But this is a little bit too much, Louisa. Don't use too much, because the fabric is really, you know, it's thin, and I don't want to have glue coming through the fabric. So I make sure that the glue goes to the very, very edge of this. It helps if you lift the cover up so that you don't have glue on your table, or like, you know, on your glass mat if you have the glass mat, or whatever you use to protect your table. It's not that the table could get dirty, because, you know, it's a table. I'm sorry. Of course, that would be also not so good, but I do that I don't accidentally, you know, move the cover through the glue, which could come to my table if I won't lift this up. So that way everything below the cover on the table now is clean, and I can then, and that is important, put a little bit of additional glue into the slot here, because with pressing this down, the glue got already a little dry in the black slot there. Make sure that you have a good amount of glue in the slot, because if that is glued down not well enough, you will freak out later when everything is dry and you close the journal, because it could then happen that this area there looks really ugly because the fabric is going to lift off from the book cover material, and then you have, like, you know, air below that, and that is not nice. So I make sure, and I always do that in the very end so that the glue is fresh there. I know that is perhaps a little bit weird, but I want to make sure that it is really nice attached here. Nice, really well attached here. Why am I saying nice? That is, I think, weird. So then let's press this down. Why is this? This is a little bit wonky. Is that the print? I want to make sure that I don't pull here too much, so that I mean, you have seen I have flattened this with my hand, and not, you know, I don't pull here or here, so that the fabric can't get wonky. That's important with, you know, especially with thinner fabric, because then the print could get wonky as well if you pull too much. Okay, so then we can take our bone folder and go into this little slot to press this down really well. And, you know, in the very beginning, I told you that I have cut this edge here from the original book cover really straight. And perhaps you can see the reason now, because if I won't do that, if I wouldn't have done that, then this edge here could be really wonky as well, meaning this slot can only get so straight like the material below is. If your book cover is already wonky and you haven't paid attention to this edge, then this edge can't get straight with your new journal. Yeah, so it can only get that straight like it was before. I like to go in here so that now, of course, the fabric gets glued to this black slot material which we had before there, meaning this is the space, and there's like flexible material which we later on need to close and open the journal. I will not do that now because I want to leave this as it is and let it dry. Don't make the mistake to close this too early, because if you would close this now, then it could happen that the glue gets loose there again, and then you would also have this problem, like, you know, with air, like you would have not enough glue there. Yeah, if this lifts off, then, you know, the fabric is in the air later, and then you have a problem. Then it looks, yeah, this is a good example. Then it looks somehow like this here now. Can you see that? This is not attached because there's no glue yet. But, you know, if that comes off, then it's a problem. So, I mean, it's not the end of the world, of course. But this video is also to explain everything, and you can make your own mistakes. Yeah, so I have experienced this. So that is why I tell you that, so that you don't make the same mistakes like I made in the past. So then let's do this whole thing again and glue this down here. Spread the glue here. This person is calling me again. Do you want to know who it is? You can guess who it is. Guess who is calling me? It's the third time already since I'm gluing this. What the heck is going on with him? I don't know. I think he had to, I mean, if you know, you know who I'm talking about. Oh no, stay here. He had to bring his guitar to a shop to repair the guitar, and I think now he has a problem with his time because he doesn't know what to do with his time at the moment, and I think he wants to have someone who listens to his crying, because he said that his guitar is now in the shop. But I have no time, I have to finish this. Oh my goodness, I'm a bad friend. But I even don't know if that is the reason, but, you know. What am I talking here? If you know, you know. If you're new, don't be confused. Do you also talk to yourself when you are crafting? I always do that. And then sometimes I talk really weird things where no one can follow. Normally that is not so important because I'm alone here, but when the camera is recording, perhaps I should think about what I'm saying. So then let's put a little bit of glue into the slot here. Go in there. And it's also helpful to have a brush which is flexible, not too stiff and not too scratchy. Yeah, so choose a brush for your gluing which is like not too fluffy but not too stiff as well, so that you know, the bookbinder's glue is pretty thick and you want to move it around, so the these guys, the bristles of the brush have to be like a little stiff so that you can make pressure with them, but at the same time they shouldn't be too stiff, otherwise you wouldn't get an equal coat of the glue to your material. So you don't want to have like marks from the brush in the glue, because that with some fabrics could be a problem, because you know, when fabric is thin and you go over this and you have this like weird like styrofoam feeling from the glue, and you know, this pattern like texture which you made into the glue with the paintbrush, then that is not good, because if it glues if it dries like that, then you have the texture later here as well, and probably you don't want that. Okay, so when we have that, we are going to let this air dry. I can't recommend to use a heat tool for drying this, because if you now would go with a heat tool like this, especially when it's something like the heated tool from Ranger, which gets really hot, if you go on here and this gets really hot, then you know, the glue shrinks down while it dries, and then it could happen that the cover bends and that this is not flat anymore in the end, and we have the glue only on the inside, meaning it could happen that then when the glue, you know, the water is going to go away from the glue. I don't know how to say that, you know, when you heat it up, the water is going away, and then everything that gets smaller, and it could happen that the cover bends like this, especially if you have a really like thin and a little flexible book cover material. So I will let this dry here like so with the clamp on here, and I will let it air dry until it's really like completely dry, and then we can close this, remove this, and then we are going to be happy. So this has now, after a few hours, the same temperature like my hands, meaning this is dry. If this feels cold, you know it isn't dry yet. So we can remove the clamp, and then we can have the best moment of the whole thing, because we can close the journal now and we can hold it in our hands for the very first time. And this is always so, so cool. Then you can also see, you know, how wonderfully spread and equally this is spread. Oh my goodness, I can't even talk. This is really good. Okay, so then you can see we have still this white edge around here, meaning this is of course the back of the fabric, and I don't want to have the fabric shown here. You could do this. I think I have done something like this in the past as well with some journals where it looked good, but in this case, you know, this white frame around this purple color cover is not it's not just not nice. So and that also was not the plan to have this here, yeah, but the plan was, and it still is. Oh, and before I do that, let me show you what I like to do when I have this here for the first time. I like to go through the pages, and from you know, here and there, I like to go over the pages like this, so that they can, you know, the pages are in the journal and they want to get a connection with the cover now, and they, you know, before we did this, the pages have been like pieces of paper, and now they are pages, and they have to act like pages, meaning you want to be able to flip through this really well. And when you then go over your finger here like so, you know, in both directions, then you can tell the pages somehow that they shall lay flat. They lay flat even if you won't do that, but it's a little, you know, trick so that you can flip through this easier, and, you know, then the pages know what they are supposed to do, and you have an easier job when you later on want to journal in this journal. And as you can see with this binding method, everything is really flat. Yeah, this goes up a little bit because of some thicker embellishments, but if I want to journal on the pages, you can imagine I can, you know, only with the weight of my hand, I can just journal here and everything is really flat. Even in the back, you know, this goes down and it is, you know, squishy, but you can write on here and it lays really flat as it can lay, because here are pages. Yeah, so and that's the first thing I like to do when I have this stage of the project. And then I like to take something to protect my table a bit, because I want to put my journal here like so, and then take my awl, if I can find it, and I go in here with my awl and I take these fibers out. These, if fiber is the right word, then fibers, if not, these threads, you know, so that we get only the fluff here, meaning all of this has to go now. And then this also looks not white anymore, but it's a little translucent and it looks fluffy instead of having this white border. And since this is handmade, you can imagine that the threads here are not all the same length, because we are not a machine when we put this on, meaning it could happen like here that this is a little wider than here, for example, and because we've glued the fabric to the inside, it can happen that when you then pull here, that they stop here, and that you can't get them out completely just by pulling further. That is, of course, because the fabric is glued down here on the inside, and the threads stop there where they are glued down. Yeah, do it carefully, and if you can't go further, don't like pull like crazy, but take some scissors and just cut these off, because if you would pull more, then it could happen that you pull that off from the inside of the cover here, so that, you know, the glue gets loose then, yeah, and you know, you pull the glue off and the thread, and then it could happen that you can see the cover material here through the fabric, yeah, because it gets shorter here then. So this is also a good possibility to get some additional interest to the, yeah, to this fluff here, because when you have areas where you have to cut these threads off, of course you can also leave them a little longer, like it happened automatically here, for example. And also here I've not cut them to the same length than the rest is here, so that we have this little tiny guy here, which makes this little thing interesting. Of course you can cut them really straight, yeah, that's also a possibility, but I like to do it this way. And I have the feeling with the awl that you also yeah, somehow you split the fibers that are left here, and that makes even more fluff. So that looks different than if you would do that with your fingernail. And this is of course also way faster. So here we have, oh no, we don't have another one, but here, look, I can't pull more because it's sturdy here, so I can cut them off here so that I get more interest here to this little area. And with this method I go around the whole cover. Can also open the journal like so in between of the signatures so that you can have it flat or nearly flat on your table. And of course you can do this as extremely as you like, but I go to until the edge of the cover and not further, so that I get rid of this white frame, that I'm left with only the fluff, and that then the main fabric, if we don't count the fluff, is the same size like the cover is. And as you can see, this is really fast. You could, and I have tried that in the past as well, take a sandpaper as well and go over that from the inside of the cover, over the edge there, but that is way more uncontrollable, and it could happen that you accidentally scratch off too much. So what I like to do is, when I have this, please give me a little second, when I have all of the threads out until I can see that there's the edge of the cover, I like to take a sanding disc and make the fluff more extreme with a little trick, and that also makes the fluff a little irregular in the, I don't talk about the length of the fluff, but like the texture of the fluff, because when you look at this edge here, you can see that this looks really regular. It looks like we just have taken an awl and we have taken the threads out, and that is of course exactly what we've just done, but this looks regular somehow. And if you want to have a more used look, you can take a sanding disc or a really fine sandpaper and carefully, please do that carefully, you don't want to shave the fluff off, yeah. If you go over this aggressively, then these little guys would fall off, yeah. So I go over this really carefully, and also not much, just a tiny bit. And it also helps when you do this, turn them around the bend them around the corner here and go over them like so, so that you don't accidentally shave them off. And with doing that, they look way more irregular and more fluffy. Can you see that? Yeah, that's it. Tschüssikowski. That means Tschüssikowski. Do you know what that means? That is a word perhaps if you watch my German videos, you have heard me saying that in the end of the videos. I always say Tschüssikowski because Tschüssikowski is a variation of Tschüss, and Tschüss is bye. And to be honest, I'm relatively proud of myself at the moment that I could manage this thing here, this video. I was a little nervous before I started recording because, I wanted to answer many of your questions, and that is sometimes not so easy, especially if you try to explain something that you do on a daily basis, not a daily, but on a regular basis. And then sometimes you have to step a little back and try to imagine how someone would see this whole thing who is new to junk journaling, and that is sometimes not so easy. So I'm really hoping that I could cover the most of your questions. And if not, of course, please, please, please feel free to ask if something is not clear, or if I forgot to explain something, then please feel free to leave a comment, and I will try my best to either answer your comment with, you know, an answer, I mean a comment as well, so that I can write something to your question, or if it is a bigger question and I missed, you know, a bigger thing here with this video, then of course I'm happy to make another video where I can cover those things that I missed here or that haven't been clear. Oh, this is so satisfying. And if you have a fabric, this would be not so good for that, but if you have a fabric where the threads are really thick and really sturdy, meaning I could try it here, but I would be a little not so sure if that, I don't know if it would work. But what I'm trying to say is, if this would be really sturdy, and I'm totally sure that nothing can't tear here, I would leave this like, you know, this long, and I would fiddle some beads on here so that I have a little additional dangle here. That could be an idea if you have a fabric which allows that. Not so sure, because these threads here are really like, yeah, it feels a little different in the different spots here. Some are like really thin and they are a little weird as well. Not so sure if that could work, so I would just cut this off to be on the safe side. But if you have something where, you know, a fabric where the threads are really sturdy and you have the feeling that nothing can tear, then use that for making a little dangle for your journal. That is really cute, especially with, you know, tiny beads. Here the writing of the spine from the original book cover is gold, so I would probably then take some of the tiniest golden beads. I wouldn't hang something heavy onto those threads, but you know, just those tiny details like mini braids, or how do you call those in English, you know, these little, which are only like 2 millimeters in diameter, Durchmesser. I'm sure that I pronounced that wrong, but hopefully you know what I mean. Come out. And if you don't like this kind of look here on the edges, of course you could also cut this short, either, you know, in a really straight line, or you still now would have the possibility, of course, to cut it off completely. That also happened to me in the past, that I made it like this, and I took the time to fiddle, not fiddle, that is so weird, because in German there's a really similar word, and that always brings me to the word fiddle, even if I don't mean fiddle. It happened to me in the past that I made this, and that I have taken out all of these threads, and then I had this, and then I looked to the journal, because now I can see how it looks in total, and I can get a feeling for this whole thing. And then I decided that I don't like the fluff. I mean, that can also happen, but the good thing is, if you have left it bigger, then you have now the possibility to just cut off the fluff, and then you would be left with just the cover. And that is good, because, you know, cutting something off is always, or in the most cases, no problem. But cutting the fabric in exactly the size of the cover, and then later on you want some fluff, that is not possible, because how to attach the fluff, yeah, without effort and time and, you know, wrecked nerves. But this way you can have this on your table, you can look at it for several days, And if you then think this journal needs a haircut, yeah, then take your scissors and just cut along here and cut the fluff off if you don't like it anymore. And you would then also have no problems with the inside, of course, because, you know, then it's just cut here and everything's fine. I like this. And I really like this with the white. Sometimes fabric, when fabric is when fabric is white from the back, like this fabric is, then sometimes that looks not so nice. If you have a cover where white doesn't fit, then, you know, this could be a problem, because this is the left side of the fabric, what we see here now. Perhaps you should have that in mind as well. But here, I think it fits really well, because this is white, we have the white splatters here, and I think that's a really nice combination. If you have like this white and you think, oh, my cover doesn't have white, then perhaps you want to consider making some white splatters. You could always do that now, yeah, also here on the back. I mean, I like how it is, but if this was too less white for me, I would probably add some white splatters here to get a connection to these white fibers here. Does that make sense? Hopefully. So this is finished now, and I'm really hoping that you could get some inspiration from this video. As I said, if there are any questions, then please let me know. Have a very creative day and see you the next time. Bye bye. Tschüssikowski.